In the blazing darkness, a modified Orlan 10 drone deceives the Panzer's one system, triggering a massive explosion at a Russian ammo depot. And the fiery blast marks only the beginning, the opening strike of an FPV swarm diving toward a vital logistics bridge. In the dead of night, a 600-foot bridge collapses into the river below, its steel frame twisting under relentless FPV strikes. Chaos engulfs Russian defenders, shouts, gunfire, retreating boots. At precisely 2:47 a.m. on October 12, 2025, partisan units near Novocherkassk crouched just 300 feet from a vital railway artery. From the horizon, a Switchblade 600 drone darts low toward a signal control box. 15 Russian engineers scramble to fix communications, unaware a whisper of wings carries their doom. The drone's camera locks on 1 second later. The night flares white. This railway is Russia's lifeline, feeding 2,000 tons of 150mm shells south to the front. Ukrainian operatives, aided by defectors, have mapped every inch of the 12-mile track, memorizing each switch, each schedule. They know when convoys roll, when guards grow careless. Yet a flaw hides in plain sight. The Nebo M radar's downward tilt leaves a blind corridor hugging the ground perfect for drones. Inside Russian ranks, suspicion festers. Rumors of an FSB mole prompt commanders to slash patrols. In Rostov Command, paranoia takes root. Conflicting orders unravel discipline. The Pantsir S-1, with its 360-degree radar and 2.5-mile range, falters against small, erratic drones. The Lur-3 jamming grid blinds both enemy and ally. The stage is set not for brute force, but surgical precision. At 2:51 a.m., a supply train thunders into the kill zone, carrying 2,000 shells. The ATS operator guiding the drones resists striking the armored locomotive. Instead, the plan is surgical. Halt the system, not destroy it. A Switchblade 600 dives toward the signal box, the railway's electronic brain. Its shaped charge detonates, vaporizing circuits. Warning lights flash crimson, then darkness. The train halts, exposed. Beneath the gravel, Claymore mines awaken. A radio pulse ignites them, twisting rails and shredding the convoy in a storm of steel. The explosion's heat signature lights up Nebo M radar screens. Sirens wail. A Panzer S-1 battery activates, scanning the sky. 3 Bayraktar TB2 drones swoop from the east decoys. The Panzer fires 57 missiles, shredding the bait into sparks. As operators cheer, believing victory near, the real weapon arrives, a modified Orlan 10 drone, gliding silently through jamming. It emits a false X-band signal, simulating an incoming missile. The Panzer takes the bait, launching missiles straight into its own ammo depot. The result is cataclysmic. 15,000 pounds of shells ignite, turning night into day. The shockwave rolls across the steppe. A Havoc helicopter lifts off, hunting survivors. But it's too late. Russia's lifeline burns, undone by deception, precision, and the quiet hum of a drone. The Havoc gunship arcs across the night sky, its sensors locking onto the fleeing partisan team below. A missile ignites, screaming through the darkness at nearly Mach 1.8. But before it can find its mark, the team leader flips a switch, a crude, handmade jammer tuned to 5.8 GHz. Static floods the missile's radar, twisting its guidance. The projectile veers wildly off course and detonates harmlessly in an empty field. The Havoc pilot, momentarily stunned, watches his display dissolve into noise. In frustration, Russian command activates the Peresvet laser system, sweeping the horizon in an attempt to blind any approaching drones. But the countermeasure comes too late. From a nearby tree line, Ukraine's final strike force emerges, a swarm of 20 FPV drones, each carrying 2 pounds of C4. They launch in unison, trailing thin fiber optic cables that glint faintly under the moonlight. These are not ordinary drones. Their control systems rely on physical tethers, cables immune to jamming, impervious to the Peresvet's searing light, guided manually through VR headsets. Their operators see through the eyes of each machine, weaving them low beneath the treetops at 60 miles per hour. The swarm moves like a living storm, an unstoppable tide of light and sound bearing down on the target bridge. The Havoc's radar finally picks up the formation, but far too late. The drones strike the concrete pillars in rapid succession, each detonation compounding the next. 40 pounds of C4 erupt in blinding flashes. Concrete shatters, steel rebar snaps like brittle bone, and the 600-foot bridge begins to groan under its own dying weight. With a deafening roar, it collapses into the river below, dragging the railway tracks into the water with it. The lifeline of Russia's southern supply network is severed in an instant. Out of missiles and powerless to intervene, the Havoc retreats into the dark. Behind it, the fireball from the ammo depot burns like a false sun, pulling reinforcements toward the wrong target. Under that fiery distraction, the Esh partisans vanish into the night, following pre-planned escape routes mapped weeks in advance. In the aftermath, investigators would trace the destruction to the physics of precision. Each shaped charge from the drones had carved away at the bridge's strength. The first explosion stripped concrete from the pillars. The next fractured exposed steel. Every blast generated over 30,000 psi shockwaves that burrowed deep, spreading microfractures until the structure gave way entirely. When dawn arrived, the scope of the devastation was unmistakable. The ammo depot lay cratered, 500 feet of rail torn apart, and the once mighty bridge reduced to rubble. 60% of artillery supplies bound for the Zaporizhia and Kherson fronts were cut off. Trains stood idle, their cargo useless, their guns silent. Within Russian command, whispers of betrayal turned to paranoia. For 72 hours, confusion reigned. As Moscow's officers blamed one another, Ukrainian troops advanced 3.5 miles across the front line unopposed. Satellite images captured the aftermath, a 30-foot chasm where the bridge once stood, the twisted remains of steel and concrete choking the river below. Moscow dismissed the attack as a temporary disruption, but for Ukraine it was a decisive triumph. For the cost of a few $100s per drone, Kyiv had crippled a billion-dollar supply artery, turning steel, concrete, and munitions into wreckage. The contrast was stark. Low-cost precision defeating high-cost vulnerability. Analysts called it a masterpiece of asymmetric warfare, and as smoke still rose from the river, one question lingered: what would be next? A fuel depot? The Nebo-M radar? Whatever the target, it would bear the same mark: silent planning, flawless timing, and devastating efficiency. That preparation ran deep. For months, insiders in occupied zones risked their lives to feed Atesh operatives. Scraps of truth train manifests, cargo records, radar logs. Ukrainian analysts found a 3.6-degree gap in Nebo-M's coverage, a blind spot in an otherwise perfect shield. Psychological warfare teams infiltrated Russian chats, seeding paranoia. Rumors of spies and traitors spread, cutting night patrols as suspicion turned inward. That hesitation proved fatal. With fewer guards, Ukrainian sappers crept in silent and unseen. Using night vision, they planted mines beneath the signal box of a key rail hub. Hours later, a Switchblade 600 drone loitered above, then dove, releasing a molten copper jet that tore through concrete and severed the hub's power. Trains froze in place. The lifeline turned to a trap. The chaos that followed was exact. Claymore mines detonated in sequence, their blasts tricking Nebo-M sensors and confusing the Pantsir S-1 network. Bayraktar TB2 drones appeared overhead, drawing missile fire and draining stocks, pulling defenses away from the true strike. Then came the deception drone, a modified Orlan 10, using optical AI to match terrain and emit false X-band signals. Russian missiles hit the decoy, sending tungsten fragments through ammo depots and triggering chain detonations. Fireballs rose 300 feet into the night, lighting the sky for miles. Even the vaunted Peresvet laser failed. It could blind optics but not cut through fiber networks. FPV drones flew just below radar, transmitting live data beyond jamming reach. The Havoc gunship systems overloaded amid hundreds of moving targets. C4 charges exploded at 26,000 feet per second, shattering bridge pillars from within. Sequential detonations caused a cascading collapse, sending the bridge into the river and blocking all replacement routes. By the time Russian forces reacted, the partisans had vanished. 70% of responders chased decoy fires, buying a 20-minute escape window. Analysts estimated the blast at 7 tons of TNT. The toll was immense. The $20 million bridge was gone. Supply routes collapsed. Artillery slowed by 80%, and trains jammed into perfect follow-up targets. Within 3 days, paranoia tore through command purges, removals, and disarray. In that chaos, Ukraine advanced steadily. The cost: a handful of drones. The impact: a wound in Russia's logistics that would take months if not longer to heal. Moscow downplayed the strike as a temporary disruption, But Kyiv framed it as a decisive, strategic victory, a stark demonstration of how low-cost ingenuity can cripple high-value infrastructure. For the price of a few $100s per drone, a billion-dollar supply artery was turned into smoldering rubble. The optics were undeniable. Satellite images within hours showed the damage, and local reports slipped past Moscow's blackout through encrypted channels. As smoke rose and commanders argued, one pressing question hung in the air. What next, a fuel depot? Or the Nebo-M radar that had failed to spot the attack vector? Behind the spectacle lay months of patient, often dangerous intelligence work. Insiders in occupied areas funneled manifests, cargo lists, and radar logs to Atesh operatives. Analysts dissected Nebo-M patterns and found a narrow 3.6-degree blind angle, a small window in an otherwise formidable shield. Psychological operations seeded doubt in Russian chat groups. Whispers of moles and traitors spread, and commanders trimmed night patrols. That erosion of routine vigilance created the opening the attackers needed. When patrols thinned, Ukrainian teams moved with precision. Night vision teams emplaced mines and prepared the signal hub for a surgical strike. A Switchblade 600, loitering until the exact moment, pierced the signal box with a shaped charge and rendered the line immobile, turning a moving convoy into a sitting target. Claymore blasts and an electromagnetic shock compounded the disruption, forcing air defenses to react to the wrong threats. Bayraktar decoys drew missiles high, depleting Russian stocks and narrowing the defenders' options. The final, devastating gambit combined deception and technology. A modified Orlan 10, fitted with terrain-matching optics, broadcast a false X-band signature that mimicked a lucrative aerial target. Panzer batteries bought the ruse. Their missiles struck the ammo depot and triggered sympathetic detonations that multiplied the blast radius within seconds. Fireballs climbed 300 feet. Heat sensors flared, and the battlefield was drowned in smoke and confusion. Conventional countermeasures struggled to adapt. High-energy lasers could blind cameras, but could not sever the fiber-tethered control links guiding the FPV swarm that followed. Electronic jamming and missile seekers were overloaded or misdirected. The Havoc gunship's targeting system became overwhelmed by dozens of small, fast-moving signatures. Sequential C. 4 detonations exploited material physics to fracture bridge pillars from within, initiating a progressive collapse that left no quick fix. When the dust settled, damage was tangible and strategic. A cratered depot, 500 feet of ruined track, and a collapsed bridge valued in the tens of millions. Logistic flows stalled, artillery batteries fell silent, and stranded trains became liabilities. Within 72 hours, paranoia fractured command, purges began, and Ukraine consolidated gains with minimal opposition. The lesson was brutal and simple in modern conflict. Intelligence, timing, and low-cost innovation can inflict damage that outweighs raw firepower.